Part 1. The discovery Zara floated gently in her specially designed water chamber, her blue-tinted skin shimmering under the soft lights of the research facility. She had been working at the Intergalactic Science Station for 3 months now, studying different life forms from across the galaxy. But today, something unusual caught her attention. The computer screen in front of her displayed files she had never seen before. They were labeled Human Biological Systems and seemed to contain detailed information about how humans created new life. Zara's large, curious eyes widened as she began reading through the documents. On her home planet of Aquaterra, things worked very differently. When it was time for her people to have children, they would gather in the sacred pools during the full moon. The adults would create beautiful light patterns with their skin, like underwater fireworks. These lights would somehow wake up special cells in the breeding chambers, and new babies would grow there over several months. It was a peaceful, quiet process that happened without much fuss. But humans did something completely different. Zara read about something called dating and romance. The files showed pictures of humans giving each other flowers, sitting together at tables eating food, and holding hands while walking. There were descriptions of emotions like love and attraction that seemed to play a huge role in how humans chose their partners. "This is so strange," Zara whispered to herself, her voice creating small bubbles in her water chamber. "They actually spend time together before having children? They choose each other?" On Aquaterra, the Council of Elders decided who would contribute to the breeding pools based on genetic compatibility and intelligence scores. There was no choice involved, no emotions, and certainly no spending time together beforehand. The whole process was handled by science and logic. Dr. Rivera, her human research partner, walked into the lab carrying a cup of steaming coffee. She noticed Zara staring intensely at her screen with a confused expression. "Everything okay, Zara?" Dr. Rivera asked, setting down her coffee and pulling up a chair next to the water chamber. Zara turned her head, her fin-like ears twitching with curiosity. "Dr. Rivera, I found these files about human reproduction, and I don't understand something. Why do humans spend so much time together before having children? What is the purpose of this dating behavior?" Dr. Rivera smiled warmly. She had grown fond of Zara over the past few months. The young alien was incredibly intelligent, but sometimes asked the most innocent questions about human behavior. Well, Zara, for humans, having children isn't just about creating new life. It's about finding someone you want to share your life with. Dating helps people figure out if they're compatible, if they enjoy each other's company, and if they want to build a future together. Zara's eyes grew even wider. "You mean humans choose their partners based on feelings?" "Exactly. We call it love. It's when you care about someone so much that you want to be with them, protect them, and make them happy. When two people love each other, they often decide to have children together." This concept was completely foreign to Zara. On D, her planet emotions were considered useful for art and music, but they had no place in important decisions like reproduction. She had always thought humans were similar to her people in most ways, but this discovery revealed a huge difference. "But how do they know if someone is genetically suitable?" Zara asked, genuinely puzzled. Dr. Rivera chuckled. "Most of the time, they don't check that at all. They just follow their hearts." "Their hearts?" Zara touched her chest area, where her own heart-like organ pumped blue fluid through her body. "But hearts are for circulation. How can they make decisions?" "It's just an expression, Zara. It means they follow their feelings and emotions." Over the next few hours, Zara couldn't focus on her regular work. She kept returning to the human reproduction files, reading about courtship rituals, marriage ceremonies, and something called falling in love. The more she read, the more fascinated she became. There were descriptions of humans feeling nervous around someone they liked, getting excited when that person entered the room, and wanting to spend every possible moment with them. Some humans wrote poems for each other, sang songs, or gave gifts. Others went on adventures together or simply enjoyed quiet conversations. The files also mentioned that humans believed love made them stronger, happier, and more creative. They wrote stories about it, made movies about it, and considered it one of the most important experiences in life. Later that day, while Zara was studying some plant samples from a nearby moon, she heard laughter coming from the break room. Through the transparent wall, she could see two humans sitting together, sharing their lunch and talking animatedly. The woman would laugh at something the man said, and his face would light up with happiness. When their hands accidentally touched, while reaching for the same water bottle, both of them smiled in a way Zara had never seen before. That must be what the files call attraction, she thought to herself. As the days passed, Zara found herself watching human interactions more closely. She noticed how some humans would look at each other with soft expressions, how they would find excuses to be near certain people, and how their behavior would change completely around someone they liked. Dr. Rivera started noticing Zara's new interest, too. "You've been asking a lot of questions about human relationships lately. Is there something specific you want to know?" Zara hesitated for a moment, then decided to be honest. "I think I want to understand this love concept better. Not just scientifically, but actually understand it. Is that possible for someone like me?" Dr. Rivera looked thoughtful. "I don't see why not. Emotions might work differently for your species, but curiosity and connection seem to be universal. Why don't you try observing some couples around the station? Maybe you'll start to understand it better." That night, floating in her chamber while the station grew quiet, Zara stared out at the stars and wondered what it would feel like to choose someone to care about, to want to spend time with them not because the council commanded it, but because her heart, or whatever the equivalent was for her species, wanted it. For the first time in her life, Zara began to question whether her people's way of doing things was the only right way. Maybe the humans had discovered something beautiful that her species had missed. Maybe there was more to creating life than just combining the right genes. Maybe there was something magical about choosing to love someone. Part 2. Cultural Confusion. The next morning, Zara decided to put her research into action. She had spent the entire night reading more about human courtship behaviors, and now she wanted to see them happen in real life. Armed with her notebook and an endless curiosity, she positioned herself in the station's main corridor where she could observe humans going about their daily routines. The first thing she noticed was how differently humans behaved when they liked someone. She watched as Jake from the engineering department walked past Lisa from communications. Jake's entire posture changed. He stood straighter, smiled wider, and even ran his hand through his hair before saying hello. Lisa's cheeks turned a soft, pink color, and she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear while responding. Zara quickly scribbled in her notebook. "Hair touching appears to be important ritual. Possible way to display genetic health?" During lunch break, she observed another fascinating interaction. Two humans, Alex and Jordan, sat together in the cafeteria sharing their meals. But they weren't just eating, they were feeding each other. Small bites of their food, laughing when sauce dripped on someone's chin, and stealing French fries from each other's plates. "Aha!" Zara whispered excitedly to herself. "Food sharing must be how they exchange genetic information before reproduction." She wrote down, "Humans transfer biological material through shared consumption. Very efficient system." Dr. Rivera found Zara later that afternoon, still frantically taking notes while hiding behind a large plant in the recreation area. Two humans were sitting on a couch nearby, holding hands while watching a movie on the big screen. "Zara, what are you doing behind that plant?" Dr. Rivera asked, trying not to laugh. Zara emerged from her hiding spot, her notebook clutched tightly in her webbed hands. "I'm conducting field research on human mating rituals. I've discovered that hand-holding must be how you transfer genetic data directly through skin contact. It's much more advanced than I initially thought." Dr. Rivera sat down next to her, curious. Friend. Oh, Zara. Hand-holding isn't about transferring genetic information. It's just a way to feel close to someone you care about. It's comforting and shows affection. Affection? Zara looked confused. What purpose does that serve in the reproduction process? Well, it doesn't directly help with reproduction. It's more about building an emotional connection. When humans touch someone they love, it makes them feel happy and safe. This concept completely baffled Zara. On Aquaterra, physical contact only happened during the formal breeding ceremonies, and even then it was minimal and strictly regulated. The idea of touching someone just to feel good seemed strange and unnecessary. Over. The next few days, Zara's observations led to even more confusion. She watched Ben from the botany lab bring flowers to Maya from the research department. According to Zara's understanding, this made perfect sense. Humans were obviously demonstrating their ability to care for plant life as proof of their nurturing capabilities for future offspring. But then she saw humans giving each other all sorts of other gifts that had nothing to do with survival or genetics. Someone gave their partner a small stuffed animal. Another human presented their beloved with a shiny rock they called a crystal. One couple exchanged books, reading passages, aloud to each other during their breaks. "Dr. Rivera," Zara said one evening as they worked late in the lab, "I don't understand the gift-giving behavior. How does a stuffed animal demonstrate reproductive fitness?" Dr. Rivera paused in her work and turned to face Zara. "You're thinking about this too scientifically. Humans don't give gifts to prove they'd be good parents. They give gifts because it makes the other person happy, and making someone happy makes you feel happy too. But why would making someone else happy matter? To you? Because when you love someone, their happiness becomes important to your own happiness. If they're sad, you feel sad. If they're joyful, you feel joyful. It's like your emotions become connected." Zara's fin-like ears drooped as she tried to process this information. That sounds inefficient and potentially dangerous. What if the other person makes bad decisions? Would you make bad decisions too? Dr. Rivera smiled gently. Sometimes, yes. Love can make people do silly things, but it also makes them do wonderful things. It makes them braver, kinder, and more generous. The conversation was interrupted when Tyler from the maintenance crew walked by the lab window. He was carrying a tray with 2 cups of hot chocolate topped with marshmallows. Through the glass, they could see him deliver 1 cup to Carmen from the data analysis team, who was working late at her desk. Carmen's face lit up with surprise and gratitude, and she gave Tyler a quick hug before he continued on his way. Zara watched this interaction with intense focus. He brought her a warm beverage, even though she didn't ask for it, and she displayed physical appreciation behavior. But they're not even officially paired according to the station records. That's called being thoughtful, Dr. Rivera explained. Tyler noticed Carmen was working late and thought she might like something warm to drink. He did it because he cares about her comfort, not because he expects anything in return. So he expended his own resources and time for someone else's benefit, with no guaranteed return. That goes against all logical survival strategies. Dr. Rivera chuckled. Welcome to human nature, Zara. We don't always act logically, especially when it comes to people we care about. As the weeks passed, Zara's notebook filled with observations that increasingly puzzled her. She watched humans hold doors open for each other, share umbrellas in the rain, and offer tissues when someone sneezed. She saw couples take long walks together through the station's artificial garden, not discussing anything important, just enjoying each other's company. One evening, she witnessed something that truly confused her. David from security was having a difficult day after receiving bad news from home. His partner, Riley from the medical bay, didn't try to solve David's problems or offer logical advice. Instead, Riley simply sat with David, held his hand, and listened while David talked about his feelings. This is the most inefficient problem-solving method I've ever seen, Zara muttered to herself. Riley provided no solutions, no data, no practical assistance, yet David seemed better afterward. The more Zara observed human relationships, the more she realized that her scientific approach to understanding them was missing something crucial. These humans weren't just following programmed behaviors designed to ensure successful reproduction. They were creating complex emotional bonds that seemed to serve no practical purpose except to make life more enjoyable. But the strangest part was that despite all the apparent inefficiency and illogical behavior, the humans around her seemed genuinely happy. They laughed more when they were with someone they loved. They worked harder to create good lives together. They faced challenges with more courage when they knew someone cared about them. Late one night, as Zara floated in her chamber reviewing her notes, she began to wonder if maybe her people had missed something important in their quest for perfect, logical reproduction. Maybe there was value in these seemingly wasteful human behaviors. Maybe feeling connected to someone was worth more than she had ever imagined. Part 3, The Experiment, begins after weeks of observing humans from a distance. Zara decided it was time for a more hands-on approach. She had filled 3 notebooks with observations, but she still didn't truly understand what humans called love. The only way to really learn, she concluded, was to experience it herself. The problem was finding the right test subject. Zara spent her morning break in the station's greenhouse, a peaceful place filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. She was examining a flowering vine from the outer rim when she heard someone humming softly nearby. Following the sound, she discovered Quinn, the station's head botanist, carefully tending to a collection of earth roses. Quinn was different from the other humans Zara had observed. He moved with quiet confidence, spoke gently to the plants as if they could understand him, and had a calm energy that reminded Zara of the peaceful waters of her home world. When he noticed her watching, he smiled warmly without the nervous hair-touching behavior she'd seen in other humans. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Quinn said, gesturing to the roses. "These particular ones are from a garden in Japan. They've traveled further from home than anyone else on this station." Zara stepped closer, intrigued. "You talk to them like they're people." "In a way, they are. They respond to care and attention. They grow better when they feel appreciated." Quinn paused, seeming to realize how that might sound. "I know it sounds strange, but I've been working with plants for 15 years. There's definitely something to it." This gave Zara an idea. Quinn seemed kind, patient, and most importantly, he already understood the concept of caring for something. That couldn't necessarily care back in the same way. He might be the perfect person to help her understand human emotions. "Quinn," she said, trying to sound casual, "would you be willing to participate in an experiment with me?" Quinn looked curious, but not alarmed. "What kind of experiment?" "I want to understand human courtship behaviors. I've been observing couples, but I think I need to experience the process myself to truly comprehend it. Would you help me practice dating?" Quinn blinked in surprise, then smiled. "That's certainly not a request I get every day. But sure, I'd be happy to help." "What did you have in mind?" Zara pulled out her notebook and flipped to a page titled Standard Human Courtship Activities. She had compiled a list based on her observations and research. "According to my data, we should start by sharing a meal together while engaging in personal conversation. Then we might try the hand-holding behavior I've observed, followed by watching entertainment media as a pair." Quinn couldn't help but grin at her scientific approach. "Okay, but can I make a suggestion? Instead of thinking of it as data collection, why don't you just try to enjoy spending time together? The whole point of dating is to see if you like being around each other." "But how will I know if the experiment is working?" "You'll feel it," Quinn said simply. That evening, Zara met Quinn in the station's small dining area. She had prepared extensively, reviewing files on appropriate conversation topics and proper eating etiquette. But as soon as they sat down together, she realized her preparations were unnecessary. Quinn was easy to talk to. He asked questions about her home world that no one else had thought to ask. Not about the science or the technology, but about what it felt like to swim in the endless oceans, what her favorite foods tasted like, and whether she missed the sound of her people's songs. On Aquaterra, we sing to the moon when it's full, Zara found herself explaining, surprising herself with how personal she was being. Each family has its own melody that's been passed down for generations. Mine sounds like ocean waves mixed with whale songs. That sounds beautiful, Quinn said, and Zara could tell he genuinely meant it. Do you miss it? I thought I didn't, Zara admitted, but talking about it now, yes, I think I do. Something strange happened as they continued talking. Zara stopped thinking about her notebook and her research. She found herself laughing at Quinn's stories about the troubles he'd had growing earth plants in artificial gravity. She told him about the time she'd accidentally created a whirlpool in her family's breeding pool and got in trouble with the Council of Elders. When Quinn reached across the table to show her something on his datapad, their hands briefly touched. Instead of analyzing it as a data point, Zara simply noticed how warm his skin felt and how the contact made her feel. Pleasant. This is strange, she said suddenly. What's strange? Quinn asked. I started this as an experiment, but I'm not thinking about the experiment anymore. I'm just enjoying talking to you. Quinn's smile grew wider. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. Over the following days, Zara and Quinn spent more time together. They took walks through the stations, corridors, talking about everything and nothing. Quinn showed her his favorite spots: a window with the best view of the nearby nebula, a quiet corner in the library where the station's hum was softest, the observation deck where he went when he missed Earth. Zara began to notice changes in herself that weren't in any of her research files. When Quinn walked into a room, she felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. When he laughed at something she said, she felt proud and wanted to make him laugh again. When they were apart, she found herself thinking about things she wanted to tell him. One evening, they were watching a movie together in the recreation area. It was a romantic comedy that Quinn had chosen, claiming it was essential research material. Halfway through the film, Zara realized she hadn't been paying attention to the story at all. Instead, she'd been watching Quinn's face, noticing how his eyes crinkled when he smiled and how he unconsciously mimicked the expressions of the characters on screen. Quinn, she said quietly, not wanting to disturb other viewers. Yeah? I think I understand now. Understand what? Why humans choose each other based on feelings instead of genetic compatibility. It's not about creating the most scientifically perfect offspring. It's about finding someone who makes you feel more like yourself. Quinn turned to look at her, his expression soft. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Zara felt her cheeks flush blue, the Aquaterran equivalent of blushing. I wasn't trying to be romantic. I was just stating an observation. The best romance is usually honest, Quinn said. As the movie continued, Zara found herself thinking less about her research and more about how much she enjoyed Quinn's company. She was starting to understand that human love wasn't just about reproduction at all. It was about finding someone who made the universe feel less lonely, someone who appreciated the things about you that made you unique. For the first time since arriving at the station, Zara wasn't thinking like a scientist studying an alien species. She was thinking like someone who was beginning to care about another person in a way she'd never experienced before, and it was both terrifying and wonderful. Part 4. Complications and Realizations. 3 weeks into her experiment with Quinn, Zara's world turned upside down. She was floating peacefully in her water chamber, reviewing some plant growth data, when an urgent message appeared on her communication screen. The official seal of the Aquaterran Council made her heart sink immediately. "Greetings, research specialist Zara," the message began in her native language. "The Council of Genetic Harmony has selected you for the sacred reproduction ceremony during the next full moon cycle. Your genetic compatibility scores with Keeper Thane are exceptionally high. You are required to return to Aquaterra within 14 planetary rotations to begin the preparation rituals. Congratulations on this honor." Zara stared at the message, her hands trembling. Keeper Thane was one of the most respected individuals on her planet, intelligent, genetically perfect, and completely dedicated to Aquaterran traditions. According to every logical measure, he was an ideal choice for creating offspring. But the thought of leaving Quinn and returning to her old life made her feel like she was drowning. "No, no, no," she whispered, reading the message again. "This can't be happening now." For the first time in her life, Zara understood what humans meant when they talked about heartbreak. The pain in her chest felt real and overwhelming. She had discovered something beautiful with Quinn, and now her own people were asking her to abandon it for duty. Dr. Rivera found her later that day, sitting sadly in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "Zara, you look terrible. What's wrong?" With tears flowing down her blue cheeks, Zara showed Dr. Rivera the message. "My people want me to come home for the breeding ceremony. If I refuse, I'll be exiled from Aquaterra forever. I'll lose my family, my status, everything I've ever known." Doctor Rivera sat down beside her friend. "And if you go, I'll lose Quinn," Zara said quietly. "And I'm starting to think that might be worse than losing everything else." "Have you told Quinn about this yet?" Zara shook her head. "How do I explain that I have to choose between my entire world and whatever this is that we have together?" "Maybe you should start by talking to him. You might be surprised by what he says." Meanwhile, the space station faced its own crisis. A massive solar storm was approaching their sector, threatening to damage the station's life support systems. All non-essential personnel were asked to help with emergency preparations. Zara found Quinn in the greenhouse, frantically trying to move the most delicate plants to protected areas. Without thinking, she immediately started helping him, using her knowledge of plant biology to identify which species were most vulnerable to radiation. "Thank you," Quinn said, carefully relocating a rare flowering vine. "I don't know what I would have done without you." As they worked together, Zara felt a strange mix of emotions. She was terrified about the message from home. But being here, with Quinn, working side by side to save something they both cared about, felt absolutely right. "Quinn," she said as they moved a particularly heavy planter, "there's something I need to tell you." Before she could continue, the station's emergency alarms began blaring. The solar storm had arrived earlier than expected, and all the station's power was being diverted to essential systems only. The greenhouse's artificial lighting flickered and died, leaving them in near darkness. "The backup power should kick in soon," Quinn said, but Zara could hear the worry in his voice. Without proper environmental controls, many of his plants wouldn't survive the next few hours. "There might be another way," Zara said suddenly. "My people can create bioluminescent light. It won't be as strong as your artificial lights, but it might be enough to keep the plants alive until the power comes back. Can you really do that?" Instead of answering, Zara closed her eyes and concentrated. Slowly, her skin began to glow with a soft blue-green light. The gentle illumination filled the greenhouse, casting everything in an otherworldly beauty. Quinn stared at her in amazement. "Zara, you're incredible." For the next 6 hours, while the station's crew worked to repair the storm damage, Zara maintained her bioluminescent glow. It was exhausting work that required intense concentration, but she refused to stop. These plants meant everything to Quinn, and Quinn was beginning to mean everything to her. As the emergency power finally restored and the greenhouse's normal lighting returned, Zara's glow faded. She swayed slightly from exhaustion and Quinn caught her arm to steady her. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "Yes, I did," Zara replied, "because seeing you lose something you love would have hurt me more than the exhaustion." Quinn looked into her large, expressive eyes. "Is that what love feels like for your people?" "I don't know," Zara admitted. "My people don't usually experience love the way humans do. But what I feel for you, it's stronger than anything I was taught was possible." It was then that Quinn did something that surprised them both. He leaned forward and gently kissed her forehead, a simple gesture of gratitude and affection. The moment their skin touched, Zara felt something extraordinary happen. It wasn't the genetic information transfer she had theorized about. It was something much more profound, a sense of connection that seemed to reach into her very soul. "Oh," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "What?" Quinn asked, concerned. "I understand now. It's not about reproduction at all, is it? This feeling, this connection, it's about two people choosing to care for each other, to make each other's happiness as important as their own." Quinn smiled. "You're getting it." But even as Zara experienced this moment of perfect understanding, the weight of her decision pressed down on her. She had to tell Quinn about the message from home. She had to choose between the life she had always known and the love she had just discovered. "Quinn, there's something else," she began, but he interrupted her gently. "I know about the message from your home world." Zara's eyes widened in shock. "How?" Dr. Rivera told me. "She thought I should know what you're going through." Quinn took her hands in his. "Whatever you decide, I want you to know that meeting you, getting to know you, falling in love with you, it's been the best experience of my life. But if I stay, I lose everything I've ever known. And if I go, you lose this," Quinn finished. "I know. And I can't make that choice for you. But I can tell you that love isn't about making the safe choice or the logical choice. It's about making the choice that feels right in your heart." As they stood together in the greenhouse, surrounded by the plants they had saved together, Zara realized that her experiment had become something much more real and complicated than she had ever imagined. She had set out to understand human reproduction methods, but instead, she had discovered what it meant to truly love someone. Now she had to decide if that love was worth risking everything else. Part 5. A New Evolution. The next morning, Zara sat in her water chamber staring at her communication device. She had drafted 3 different responses to the council's message, but none of them felt right. How could she explain to her people that she had discovered something they might not understand? Dr. Rivera knocked on the chamber's glass wall, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Mind if I join you?" Zara pressed the button to drain some water from her chamber so Dr. Rivera could sit on the edge. "I don't know what to do," Zara admitted. "If I tell my people I want to stay here for love, they'll think I've lost my mind." "Maybe that's not how you should explain it," Dr. Rivera suggested. "What if you approached it from a scientific angle? You're a researcher, after all." "What do you mean?" "Well, you've discovered something new about interspecies relationships. You found evidence that emotional bonding between different species might be possible. That's a pretty significant scientific discovery, isn't it?" Zara's eyes lit up. "You're right. This could change how different species interact with each other. If emotional connections are possible across species boundaries, it could lead to better cooperation, understanding, even peaceful alliances." "Exactly. And the only way to fully study this phenomenon is to continue experiencing it yourself." Inspired by this new perspective, Zara began working on a comprehensive research proposal. She documented everything she had learned about human emotions, her own changing feelings, and the potential benefits of interspecies emotional bonding. Quinn helped her organize her observations, and Dr. Rivera provided scientific context for her findings. But even as she worked on her proposal, Zara struggled with doubt. What if her people rejected her research? What if they saw her feelings, for Quinn as a contamination rather than a discovery? 3 days before her required departure date, Quinn found her in the greenhouse, sadly tending to the plants they had saved together. "I've been thinking," he said quietly. "Maybe I should come with you." Zara turned to him in surprise. "What?" "I could request a transfer to a research station near Aquaterra. We could present your findings together, show them that this connection between us is real and valuable." "Quinn, you don't understand. If my people reject this research, we could both be exiled. You'd lose your career, your life here, everything." Quinn smiled gently. "Zara, I told you that love makes people do brave things. I want to support you, whatever happens." That evening, Zara made her decision. She activated her communication device and began recording a message to the Council of Genetic Harmony. "Honored Council members," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I am writing to request a delay in my return for the sacred reproduction ceremony. I have made a scientific discovery that requires further study." She spent the next hour explaining her research, describing the emotional bonds she had observed between humans and the connection she had developed with Quinn. She presented it all as scientific exploration, but she made sure to convey the profound impact these discoveries had on her understanding of relationships and cooperation. "I believe this research could revolutionize how our species interacts with others in the galaxy," she concluded. "I request permission to continue my studies for one full planetary cycle, after which I will present my complete findings to the Council." After sending the message, Zara felt simultaneously terrified and relieved. She had bought herself time, but she still didn't know how her people would respond. The answer came sooner than expected. The next day, a live communication request appeared on her screen. The stern face of High Counselor Nerida appeared, her expression unreadable. "Research Specialist Zara," the High Counselor began, "your proposal has been reviewed by the Council. Your research into interspecies emotional bonding is intriguing." Zara held her breath. "However, we have concerns about your objectivity. It appears you have become personally involved with your research subject." "High Counselor, I understand your concerns, but my personal experience has provided invaluable insights that pure observation could never achieve. I have discovered that emotional connections can exist between species with completely different reproductive methods and social structures." The High Counselor was quiet for a long moment. "You are asking us to value emotion over genetic optimization. I'm asking you to consider that there might be different types of optimization. Emotional bonds create loyalty, cooperation, and mutual support. These qualities could be just as valuable for species survival as genetic perfection." Quinn appeared, beside Zara's chamber, holding her hand for support. The High Counselor noticed this gesture immediately. "And this is your research subject?" "This is Quinn," Zara said proudly. "He's a botanist and one of the kindest, most intelligent individuals I've ever met. Our connection has taught me that choosing a partner based on emotional compatibility might create stronger, more resilient family units than genetic matching alone." The High Counselor studied Quinn for a moment. "Human, do you understand the significance of what Zara is proposing? She is essentially asking our entire species to reconsider thousands of years of tradition." Quinn squeezed Zara's hand gently. "I understand, High Counselor, but I also believe that love, the kind of deep emotional connection that transcends species differences, is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. If Zara's research can help your people discover that, it would be a gift to both our species." After what felt like an eternity, the High Counselor spoke again. "Very well. The Council grants you one planetary cycle to complete your research. However, Keeper Thane will also be given the opportunity to present his courtship if you return. The final choice will be yours to make." The communication ended, leaving Zara and Quinn alone in the lab. "We did it," Zara whispered, hardly believing. "It was real." "You did it," Quinn corrected. "You found a way to honor both your scientific nature and your feelings." 6 months later, Zara presented her findings to a joint council of Aquaterran and human representatives. Her research on interspecies emotional bonding had grown into a comprehensive study of cooperation, communication, and mutual understanding. She and Quinn had become living proof that love could exist between completely different forms of life. When Keeper Thane met her upon her return to Aquaterra, he was gracious and understanding. "I have read your research," he told her. "What you have discovered is more valuable than any offspring we might have created together. You have found a new way for our people to connect with the galaxy." Zara never did participate in the sacred reproduction ceremony. Instead, she became the first Aquaterran to pursue what she called evolutionary relationship research. Her work opened doors for other interspecies partnerships and changed how her people thought about connection and family. She and Quinn continued their relationship, creating a new model of partnership that combined the best of both their worlds. They couldn't reproduce together in the traditional sense, but they created something equally valuable, a bond that inspired others and proved that love truly was universal. Years later, when young Aquaterrans asked Zara about her research, she would tell them, "I set out to understand how humans choose their mates, but I ended up discovering something much more important. I learned that the heart, whether it's human or Aquaterran or anything else, knows things that the mind hasn't figured out yet. And sometimes, the most important discoveries happen when we stop trying to analyze love and start allowing ourselves to feel it." Zara's story became legend on both worlds. The tale of the alien girl who tried to understand human reproduction and ended up discovering that love was the most powerful force of evolution in the entire universe.